Hey, this is Brad again. I've been watching the news this week, and there's a lot of hyperventilating about the attacks on our bases in Syria and Iraq, and I thought I'd give a little perspective on that. My wife had asked me, who are these guys that are attacking us in Iraq? I thought they were our allies, that kind of stuff. And other news reports is basically, if you listen to them, it's just Iran's in there kicking our butt. The people who are attacking us in Iraq are known as popular mobilization units, and if you want to know their history, you got to go all the way back to ISIS. So back in 2014, ISIS has run amok. They take over Ramadi, Fallujah, Tikrit, Mosul, the second biggest city in Iraq. They take it over. They own 40% of Iraq. They own a third of Syria. They're lopping everybody's heads off, and they're about to take over Baghdad. Well, Iraq itself is a Shia-dominant country, Shia majority that used to be ruled by a Sunni minority known as Saddam Hussein, but it's a Shia majority. And ISIS believes that the Shia are just as much of a apostate, just as much infidel as a Christian or Druze or anybody else. If they found a Shia, they would just kill them. For instance, they took over Mosul. They freed all the prisoners in prison. If you were Sunni, feel free. Here's a rifle. Come fight with ISIS. If you were Shia, they'd cut your head off. It got so bad that the Shia themselves started joining into militias. And the militia said, we're going to go defend our homeland. That kind of thing. It was basically a neighborhood watch. Go get your guns. Let's go fight. And Iran entered the fray and said, you know what? These militias are a pretty good idea. We'll start training the militias. We'll give them arms. We'll give them equipment. We'll give them training. The Quds Force came into Iraq, and they started fighting ISIS. The Iraqi government actually blessed it because the Iraqi army completely fallen apart. The Iraqi government said, you know, we need somebody, or they're going to take over Baghdad. And they called them the popular mobilization units and actually integrated them, or at least on paper, integrated them into the Iraqi government. Eventually, it got so bad that we looked at it askance and just said, well, you know, if Iran wants to take on ISIS, let them do it. But ISIS got so bad that we said, we got to help. The Iraqi government formally asked us to help them, and we did. Now, we never fought the PMU. The PMU never fought us. They were down, you know, in a different town. We were up in Mosul with the Kurds. Kind of looked at each other and said, you don't shoot at me, I won't shoot at you. You know, wink, wink, I understand Iran's doing this, but let's get rid of ISIS. That's the big deal. Go all the way to 2018-ish, and ISIS is gone. They're out of Mosul. They're out of all of Iraq. They're falling in Syria. So we redeploy most of our forces. We still have some bases there at Al-Assad and Al-Tanf in Syria and other places. But the PMU still exists, and now Iran has got their hooks in them. They've been there for the entire time, and that's how Iran functions. Get into an ungoverned space and start, getting somebody on your side. That's how they got Hezbollah in a civil war in Lebanon. Now they have Hezbollah. The Houthis have a civil war in Yemen. Now they got the Houthis. And now the PMUs literally owe more allegiance to Iran than they do to the Iraqi government. And so Iran is now saying, you know, let's attack here, let's attack there. Launch a mortar strike here, and it's basically a little chin music. They're basically saying, you know, you keep this up, I'm just letting you know these guys are out here, and your guys are in danger if you try to do anything in this Israel-Gaza war. Even though the Department of Defense, we did a strike yesterday in Syria and said this has nothing to do with the Gaza war. Make no mistake, it has every bit to do with the Gaza war. The reason those guys are doing this is because Iran is telling them to, because we're over there looking at the Gaza war. But this has been happening for a long time. Ever since the PMUs have been around, they've been doing this. Now, make no mistake, there's been a lot more attacks recently since the October 7th Hamas terrorist attack on our bases than normal. But they've been lobbing mortars and things like that quite often. Happens over and over. I see people now hyperventilating, saying, you know, we need to take it to Iran. We know they're doing this. And it's very hard to prove if Iran's directly telling these guys to do it. And there's a reason why all of our strikes, we've struck back at them a few times over the years, and especially recently, just I think last night or night before. All those attacks are in Syria. And the reason they're in Syria is because Syria's a mess. Everybody's fighting everybody, and there are actual bases of militants that we can strike. Iraq is a whole different story. Iraq is a sovereign country, has a government, has a military. They've invited us in. We're there at their invitation, still in the counter-ISIS role. That's the reason we're there. And if you think the counter-ISIS role has gone away, you just need to do a little Google search. We're continually doing strikes in Syria, special operations raids, and capturing guys left and right. That's still going on. And because it's their own country, we can't just run around shooting everybody. Al-Assad is an air base. Everybody knows where Al-Assad is. Everybody knows the Americans there. Okay, I'll launch a drone over there. There is no air base with Kataib Hezbollah flags flying over. These militias don't have compounds that you can strike. They're going into the towns. It's a militia. It's like National Guard. By day, I'm a shopkeeper. By night, I grab my weapon and I go fight. It's very hard to strike something like that. You can't just turn around. I hear people say, we should be taking it to them. Okay, well, how do you want to do that? You want to open up the gates of Al-Assad, go rolling into Mosul and kicking in doors, just like we used to when we were the monopoly of violence? You can't do that in Iraq. We're there at their invitation. And the worst case would be, another thing I hear is we should just pull out of there and leave it all to the Iraqis. You do that, and Iran's going to get complete control of Iraq. And if they do get complete control of Iraq, one of the main things we're doing is a land bridge from Iran to Syria through Iraq to get Hezbollah weapons. Right now, they have to fly them, which is why you always see the Israeli airstrikes or airports, air bases inside Syria. It's because Iran's flying stuff in. If they own Iraq, they can just drive it all in. There's no way to stop that. I digress. Anyway, the problem set we have now is whether this will escalate. Will this get into a bigger conflict? And neither side wants that. We don't want to go to war with Iran. Iran certainly does not want to go to war with us. They make a lot of proclamations about, we're going to stomp out this and do that and do this. But they know at the end of the day, we would wipe them off the face of the earth. There's no way they could stand up to us militarily. Now, there'd be a lot of blood and treasure loss. There'd be a fight. And it'd be fight all over the place. But eventually they would lose. They don't want to go to war with us. But it could have a problem of escalating. The Iranians can order the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, that works the Iranian. They can say, you do this, you do that. But they have to do everything with the militias. With all their proxies, it's through signals. It's not necessarily ordering them to do something. And those signals could get misconstrued. And if those knuckleheads in the militias, if they say, I want you a little chin music, and they say, okay, let's go kill everybody, that Iran wants us to really pound al-Assad, and they end up killing some Americans, that's going to be an escalation. And the escalation can go three ways. If it happens in Iraq, then we're going to respond in Iraq. And if we respond in Iraq, then Iraq's going to respond to us, and you're talking about a huge ball of mud at that point. So there's a lot of ways this could go sideways, and it's a dangerous game to play. We're playing it, Israel's playing it, Hezbollah's playing it, and Iran is most definitely playing it. They're playing it every day. So it is a dangerous situation. But that's the history of the guys that are shooting us in Iraq and Syria.